Obviously, a light practice. Was there anything you guys went over specific today, or just getting ready for the game?
We just added some things, scripted them so they know what they're doing. Low SOB situations. Went through checklist stuff for the season, late game situations. But yeah, it's very light. But you have to, stay consistent with what you're working on. Little pick and roll defense, and then we did some scripts, and the guys are really good and all those things. And being consistent and how efficient you are during the season, it's a good way to practice what it's going to be like, in the doldrums of January and February. So they were good today.
If there's a player that's returning from last season that has a role that's meaningfully different than the one they had last year, is there a single player, and who would it be?
I can't tell yet. Early in camp, Peyton Watson's really stood out, but that's 3 days of live action with a very light get up and down practice. So really good challenge tomorrow, not just because their starters are really good, but they're deep. And, so a lot of guys will play against bona fide NBA rotation players, regardless of how many minutes the starters play on both teams. So that's the good thing about playing a team like that. We play them way too much, to be honest, but it's, so those guys get a chance to prove it away from, playing against their own teammates.
Regardless of minutes, I even mean, it sounds like Peyton Watson, you talk about him handling the ball a lot. That would be a departure from previous seasons. So the style that's being requested, do you feel it's meaningfully different?
It has been. I think he's always been a guy we've looked at to bring it up in out of timeout plays, to initiate offense. So he's always had the ability. You can see that he's sharpened it, and that responsibility. We'll see if it goes there. If it does, he's shown that he can do it. And that would help our second unit when he flows with our first unit. It's nice to have another guy that can rebound the ball and push it, but not just push it, but make good decisions when he crosses half court. So give Pate credit. He's had a really good mentality about him all 4 days. That has to continue when things don't go well. And that'll be the challenge for our team. There'll be nights where we play different kinds of lineups, different styles of basketball. Are you patient enough to know that your turn's coming next?
Just talk to Julian. What have you seen from him so far, and what do you want to see from him in the preseason?
Just be himself. Julian's a scorer. I think the next step for him is to make plays for others. When the defense collapses, he's one of the guys that we have that can find the paint. And when you find the paint, it can't just always be a shot. We know what he can do, shooting the floater and all those things, but that group's got a lot of talent. Valanciunas rolling on the rim, shooting on the backside. So that'll be the next step for him. And he's really attempting to defend better. I think what helps that is he's gotten stronger. He had a great offseason in that sense. So, all those guys can do the same thing. It's just who flows well together. It's not the individual, it's the group always.
How much could you see more drop with Jokic factoring into some of the defensive variety that you've talked about?
Yeah, there's so many levels of drops. He won't be just at the rim like he's Gobert, but it's just looking for maybe a little more of down the floor, a couple steps down the floor. And more so, I think what we're trying to create with him, he's so high IQ, is the Marc Gasol model, where he's choosing his levels depending on the quality of player, what the player does well. So we all know his IQ is so high, but we have to work on that and allow him to work on it in practice.
With all the change abound, is it nice to have a young player like Christian where you kind of know what to expect day in, day out?
Yeah, Christian doesn't, we've always said this, even when he's a rookie, he doesn't feel like he's that age. He's a professional player beyond his years. It was fun to watch those guys run script today, the 5-on-0. They flowed so well together with Cam out there and the other four. And Christian's part of that. There's just a real understanding of what am I good at? How do I make the group better, even in a practice setting like this?
In training camp, having a guy like Big Val, do you think that challenges Jokic in these type of situations?
Yeah, he's a real center that's been good for a long time. And it's been nice to have Moses, to have a guy that's of that height. Valanciunas is Jonas is such a big guy. It's nice to have Moses. We have three real centers. And then you have a Zeke and Duran and guys that can slide to the 5, AG, and challenge the centers to guard people that can spread the floor. So it's a really good camp roster for a lot of reasons. And, Jonas is a special player. He has been a good player for a very long time.
Touch on this a little bit, but what's the plan in terms of availability and rotations tomorrow and throughout the preseason?
Yeah, as far as I know, everybody's available. And I think because our schedule the way it is, playing tomorrow, most likely off of the travel day, playing again, most likely off the next day, you'll see our guys play. I think it's important. It's almost like a practice for them. We went light today for that reason, and then we'll get back at it next week, where it's almost like a second training camp with the 4 days off.
How much of these defensive changes are about the postseason only versus the regular season? Or you try to make it work for both? Where was your mind when you were kind of crafting this?
Yeah, I mean, we looked at the whole season. Sometimes you get some, games that don't really matter because you're just getting up and down. So the playoffs do give you a real framework of what worked and what didn't. And so I do look at those games as something to build off. Not to mention, we tried different stuff during those games, the last 3 games of the season into the playoffs, and some of it didn't work, and some of it did. And so let's capitalize on that. And you could tell the guys believed in it. And their belief is more important than all the ideas I could come up with. It's about them and what they say, all right, we're going to do this, we're going to do it hard. And they have so far.